Today on the Paul Harrell program, America is under attack from the left as an ICE facility was shot up. People are dead. The FBI claims bullets recovered from the scene had anti-ICE written on them, literally, anti-ICE. And James Comey may be getting indicted as the statute of limitations is about to take effect on September 30th. Reports indicate that he's going to be charged with lying to Congress. We'll talk about that, much more. The Paul Harrell program starts right now.
The Paul Harrell program.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, once again, we have a situation where the violence of the left is the feature. It's not the bug. It's not the anomaly, according to what we're finding out. Rob Spencer, my co-host, take it away, sir.
Paul, we're literally just seeing something else every day. Honestly, at this point, is anybody surprised that what we saw today? And then you also look at the reaction by many on the left to look at it and say, well, that's MAGA violence here. That's undoubtedly because the people that were shot at the facility were these illegal immigrants who are being detained or whatever, or about to be deported. And you're just like, okay, well, if that person was against illegal immigration, going to get them at the facility where they've already been captured that wouldn't be the right call. You would be going to get it at them from a source, where I believe this job site is employing a lot of this. So it's just ridiculous. It's the same people that were screaming that Charlie Kirk was killed by somebody on the right. Mm-hmm. And you're just like, okay, your liberal warped brain believes that someone was shooting up an ICE facility when there's been tons of protests at an ICE facility. You believe that it was MAGA that did it, the same way that you believe MAGA killed Charlie Kirk. I don't know that there's any hope for your intelligence until, you cannot, in my opinion, be some sort of productive member of society until you snap out of that liberal haze.
I agree, and the liberal haze, I think, is based on moral superiority.
Yeah,
and if
they're smarter than us,
well, and exactly, and if they have written us off as altogether evil, which they have, then having to come to grips with somebody from their side, or their tendencies are now getting more and more violent. They don't want to have to condemn themselves. They don't want to have to admit they're wrong. I mean, it is truly a blindness. I mean, it's truly a spiritual blindness that is certainly evident on the left. And then at the same time, I mean, I realize that our side, we think that we're right. We think that, obviously, we think that we're morally superior.
I think that we're right about some things, but we talked about, even this week, we've said that I've got some frustrations with the FCC director going on Fox News and going on the Sunday news shows and talking about how they need to take a look at late night television. That is not your job, FCC. Have they crossed a line? Then give them a fine. Have they done something that they're not supposed to do? Then give them the fine. But just because they have a different opinion, I agree with Ted Cruz on this, FCC, stay out of this. Sinclair, Nexstar, these ABC affiliates, now they may choose to do something because it was bad for their business. Right. And I agree with that because that's what the market calls for.
Let me ask you this, just at what point would you be for the government? Is there any instance where you would be for the government pulling ABC's broadcast license for actively deceiving or lying to the American people to foment violence? Because a lot of the argument could be made that them constantly, intentionally deceiving the people with the leftist rhetoric is enabling what we call the stochastic terrorism. Remember that? I mean, so is there any scenario, Rob, curious, where you would say, I think the government does need to step in here and do something about it? It's a tough question.
It is. I think it's I think it's more than what they're doing now, because what I see right now is, all right, so Trump comes out and he makes a statement. I'm just giving an example. He comes out, he makes a statement, and there are, several points in that. And the, very much there are good people on both sides argument there for the Charlottesville thing and all of this stuff, right?
Right.
So
That was they took that out of context. Is that
yes,
what you're
they
talking
took
about?
that.
They
They
lied.
took,
Yeah.
you know, if you are taking that out of context and deceptively producing that for your audience there, I equate that to be the same as somebody going on Twitter and posting or going on X and posting something with just a clip of it, like a fight. Like, you know, you see two people fighting, and then in the comments, or I'm sorry, the title of the video, it'll say, you know, guy beats up another person that he found was, you know, had raped his sister, you know, or whatever.
But you don't know if that's
you don't know that. You haven't seen the whole video, so you have no clarity on all of that. Well, so if you're an objective person, you take that with a grain of salt. I do think that there needs to be some sort of disclaimer put on there and just say something to the effect of, you know, this hasn't been verified or whatever. Like, I don't know if there needs to be changes to the FCC guidelines that state, hey, if you're going to run a news article about this or that, that there needs to be some sort of disclaimer on there. But to silence it, to say, no, you can't do it, I'm not on board with that.
Well, you know, there's got to be, obviously, the First Amendment, you know, has in there the freedom of the press for a reason.
Yes.
I do think, though, there's got to be some kind of, you know, I go back and think about things like when George Zimmerman shot Trayvon Martin.
Yeah.
Okay. They
hunted him down.
Yeah. They released the 911 call, and they edited out the portions. I can't remember exactly what they edited out, but they just cut to he looks black. Mm-hmm. And so they edited out the question of the 911 operator, I believe, was actually asking him, what color is he?
Yeah.
So they edited that part out and just had him call 911 and saying, oh, man, there's some guy up to no good. He looks black. And then that's the only thing that they released. And the only reason they did that is to manipulate their people.
Sure.
And that's evil, and that's wrong. And
well, we saw that in Missouri there with the hands up, don't shoot with Michael Brown situation.
That's right.
You know, you said the dude had his hands up and was like, please don't shoot me. Yeah. You know, and it was the eyewitness who gave that account. Well, then, of course, under grilling and interrogation, he was like, well, I made that part up. He totally lied about it, and started an entire race war.
What you're saying is exactly right. It's the lying, and I kind of go back to that clip that we played last week of Charlie Kirk talking about how our civilization and the structures and institutions around it were built for a Christian people. Mm-hmm. So you don't have these problems if you have a Christian media or a media that is run by Christians that have a moral problem with lying. Yeah. Not to say there aren't Christians that lie. Obviously, people sin every day. But you know what I mean? It's rampant. People don't have a problem with lying. They don't think lying is wrong to get what they want. And so our system is now now we're debating this issue. Like, now I'm asking, is there anything they could do where we would support the FCC doing, you know, taking a more authoritative role? And the reason we're asking that is because there's a problem, because our society, you know, was built, like Charlie Kirk said, for Christians, and we've got less and less of that morality ethic everywhere across the country.
To your point, Paul, the only way that I'm in favor of that is if the FCC has specific guidelines in place that ABC, NBC, CBS are breaking. If they are not breaking those specific guidelines, I don't believe in some sort of subjective look at their programming.
I agree.
That says, hey, we don't like this speech over here. We don't like, because honestly, if we're being really honest right now, Paul, if you were to re-listen and re-watch what Jimmy Kimmel says in his monologue, the one that got him put off the air, and he says, we've had several things happen over the last couple of days or whatever where MAGA is doing
desperately trying,
desperately trying to paint the shooter as anything other than one of them.
Right.
Now, did he specifically say that the MAGA shooter is one of?
He did not call the shooter MAGA.
He said that MAGA is trying to say it wasn't us. Yeah, it wasn't our side. Now, we all know what he meant because we've seen too many monologues. We know what his leftist ideology is. But what did he say? Now, I don't disagree with ABC's stance of, wow, we're getting a lot of backlash about this. We need to take him off the air. Nexstar, Sinclair, these affiliates.
To your point, that's where the subjectivity comes in. If it's not the government, the subjectivity is with a culture that values, there's a shame level to it, there's a business level to it, as you said, and so the subjectivity is from the private companies being like, I don't want to be affiliated with somebody that would say something so insensitive or inflammatory or deceitful or whatever right after we just saw Charlie Kirk get assassinated.
Correct. So if the FCC were to look at Jimmy Kimmel's comments just in a vacuum and subjectively think that he was trying to wrongfully blame this on MAGA, and then someone else could look at it and subjectively think that he was just trying to say, MAGA is so desperate for him to not be on their side that they're doing everything that they can to prove that he's not on their side, albeit never saying, I think this shooter is MAGA.
Yeah.
We all know that that's what he was intending. Yeah. We all know that that's what he is implying because he's got countless hours of monologues to back up his leftist ideology. I don't like the subjectivity where we're looking at it through a subjective way and saying, I think this is what you meant, therefore I'm going to shut you down. FCC, which is controlled by the government. A private company, ABC, Sinclair, Nexstar, looking at it and saying, we know what you meant, Jimmy, and you're off the air. That's a totally different scenario. I'm in favor of that.
Yeah. Well, and maybe the FCC will try to address this problem because or maybe you have to repeal the Smith-Moon Act or put the Smith-Moon Act back in place.
Put it back in place.
That said you can't propagandize America.
Yeah.
And so then we have to decide, well, what's the definition of propaganda? And the media.
And who's the arbiter?
Countless examples.
Right, who's the arbiter?
So, yeah, unbelievable. All right, so real quick, let's just get right to it.
Excuse me.
I guess this is the latest that we have, and we show this.
Yeah, they just
this just came
out less than 30 minutes
Trump
ago.
to sign executive order targeting domestic terror networks after a despicable attack at Dallas ICE facility. So this morning, a sniper attack. It's a leftist. They've gotten into social media. They know, and we've got the receipts for that. Joshua Yan, or is it Jan? But I've been saying Yan since 12 o'clock today. Confirmed by the Daily Mail, killed 2 detainees at an ICE facility in Dallas and critically injured another. Yan killed himself with his rifle. The FBI described the incident as an act of targeted violence. The shooter opened fire from an elevated position. Investigators found an unspent round with anti-ICE political messaging, quite literally. And so now we're just talking about the government and doing what they can legally. I mean, this is what millions of Americans want. They want the government to start to secure the homeland, basically. I mean, that's where we're at with this.
Well, I mean, I think it's just, 2 weeks to the day, right, where Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and we have another instance of leftist violence. And so why are we ignoring what is clearly, flatly in front of our faces, that the left is the party of violence? Now, does violence exist on the right? I'm listening to an audiobook right now. He was on Joe Rogan's podcast back in March, and his name is Scott something. So sorry, I can't remember. But anyway, he came up with this phenomenal book, and he talks about his time as an undercover FBI agent, and he had infiltrated biker gangs. Okay, and very much like if you've ever seen. If you've ever seen something like
I saw what you're I remember this. I don't remember the guy's name either. Man, what a harrowing story.
So he just talks about like how he was strip searched in the basement while he was wired. And the guy did not find his wire in his clothing because had he found it,
he was dead, man.
He was dead right there. And so anyway, he talks about it, but what he did open my eyes to is that there is a sector of supremacist, white supremacists out there that are a danger. Now, we don't hear about them. We don't see them very often, but they are there. There is an underbelly of white supremacy going on right now. So once they start gearing their head up, and pulling their head up, we've got to absolutely address that. But who is lifting their head up right now? It is the far left lunatics who believe that anybody on the right is the second coming of Hitler. Anybody on the right is Satan. Anybody on the right does not deserve to draw breath. Now, is that for everybody on the left? No, 100%. We believe that. We know that there are good, moral people on the left. They just have a different view than us. I'm talking about this extreme left.
When you say moral, you just mean they're not. They don't think murder is justified.
Moral in their own standpoint.
Yeah, but
they believe that they have a set of morals. They have a set of morals that they live by. And one of those morals would absolutely restrict violence against the right.
Political violence.
Correct. Correct. So then you've got these people on the extreme left, though. Those are the ones who murdered a Charlie Kirk, who shot up a Catholic school in Minnesota, who shot up a Christian school in Nashville. When you can go through all of the list of this transgender violence and stuff, but every one of the individuals was on the left. And then we see this guy who's frustrated about ICE, who is frustrated about the immigration policy of the United States right now and how there's basically zero tolerance. And they shoot up an ICE facility and they kill somebody, right? And so he killed one or two people today, and then himself. I can't remember exactly what the last count was. I know he killed at least one other person. So he killed two detainees.
Yeah.
And what we saw and what we'll talk about is, basically how the left is trying to say that this guy was on the right.
Yeah, it is.
Same way as with Charlie Kirk.
And I've just been told, because we're doing a test run on the hometown TV.
Yeah.
And we are now live.
We are live on Hometown TV. Hey, thank you for all the viewers here. We appreciate you being here.
And so on that, the one video that we did have scheduled today, I am 100% sure that the TikTok is not edited.
Okay,
so we want to.
So we'll describe that.
We were going to describe that video, but to the point, those of you they see this on the screen. This is every single left wing account on X right now trying to explain how the shooter Joshua Yan at the ICE facility in Dallas was anyone other than a left wing lunatic radicalized by the Democrats.
So what are those words? Those are Jimmy Kimmel's inversely. They've taken Jimmy Kimmel's.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
That's what they did.
So this guy, his mom is he's got several anti-Trump Facebook posts.
Okay.
His sister. Let me get a picture of this guy real quick. Here he is. His sister, apparently he's been arrested several times and is dating a male to female transgender.
Alrighty.
Okay, so it's just heterosexuality with extra steps.
Alrighty.
I guess. And he's got. Let me see if I can find this one.
Go back to that picture though. I gotta say this. I find it offensive as a person who doesn't have hair. Wash your dang hair, son. Wash your hair and treat it. Like here I'm asking for proper grooming habits
from a murderer.
Essentially.
And then this was, let's see, where did this go? Hang on a second. Laura Loomer reporting. There's a zoomed in pic of the profile photo from his background check. The shooter's undeniably a radical leftist. So this was a profile picture on one of his social media accounts, Glorious Exposition Comrade.
Okay, so that right there screams conservative.
Oh yeah.
That looks just like what a Republican would have as his profile picture.
Yeah, the hammer and sickle is not normally associated with the Republican Party.
It really is not. So, I mean, the Party of Freedom is not down with the communism here.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty serious. But anyway, back to the leftists. I mean, you'd have to see this to believe it. But here's this lady who does not believe. I mean, she really is having a complete meltdown. Matter of fact, it's almost like a parody. It almost felt like to me when I watched it that she was making a parody of a leftist. But it's real.
She's 100% correct, or 100% a liberal. I believe if you will scroll to about 20 seconds before you start that video, you're going to be totally fine.
Well, no, I can already tell.
She's about to say a word there.
She's about to say a word. No,
we're glad to have you on Hometown TV here. Just know that trust us when we talk about this video. So I sent this to Paul first.
But what this is not even being, what we are hearing is not being pumped out over the air right now. So
okay, they can only see the video.
Yeah, they can only see the video of what's going on. But she doesn't buy any of it. And thinks it was just like totally. Totally a plant. She
thinks those what you're seeing on your screen there. She thinks that is fake. She believes that these were fake, shells.
I mean, from to try to put yourself in their shoes, it is awfully convenient.
It is
that these leftists are. Assuming that it's true, and I believe that it is. From what we have right now, it is awfully convenient that they wouldn't, that they wouldn't try to paint, if they were leftists, that they wouldn't somehow try to paint that they were on the right just to confuse everybody.
No, I mean, what's the same? We saw this with the Charlie Kirk situation. Oh, there he is. There's that Joe Rogan click over there.
Yeah, that's exactly
TikTok.
What we were just talking about.
Yeah, that was the guy. And so I watched there's a Joe Rogan with him, and he is Scott something, and he is the former FBI guy. If you're ever looking for a good podcast, listen to that. It was 2.5 hours. I was enthralled the entire time.
Well, so we do have this clip. Here's Vice President J.D. Vance speaking about the violence at the ICE facility. Let's listen to this.
And I think that is the most disgusting thing. The very people who keep us safe ought to be honored and protected and praised by Democrats and Republicans alike. It is time to stop the rhetorical assault on law enforcement. Because here's what happens. Because here's what happens when Democrats like Gavin Newsom did say that these people are part of an authoritarian government. When the left-wing media lies about what they're doing, when they lie about who they're arresting, when they lie about the actual job of law enforcement, what they're doing is encouraging crazy people to go and commit violence.
Yep.
You don't have to agree with my immigration policies. You don't have to agree with Donald Trump's immigration policies. But if your political rhetoric encourages violence against our law enforcement, you can go straight to hell, and you have no place in the political conversation of the United States of America.
So if you could not hear the words that he was speaking, he spoke live, and he essentially was saying, if you can have disagreements politically, but if your words are encouraging people to act violently, then you have no place in our society.
Yeah, they heard all of that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So they could hear that part.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, So basically, what they're saying, Vice President J.D. Vance is saying is what we're all thinking here, that we have a frustration with the fact that the liberal, mass media here is pumping ideology. Like, can you imagine what the voting record would look like if MSNBC and CNN did not exist? Now, let's just throw this in there, and Fox News. What we would have ABC, CBS, and NBC. I think if Fox News didn't exist and conservatives could only consume their news from those, I think that they would be forced to change, because their advertisers would absolutely be bombarded with frustration from conservatives, because NBC is way to the left here. You're way to the left here, and so what that would do is trickle down. It would trickle down into the newsroom there when they're deciding how to present these stories. Now, maybe I've got rose-colored glasses on when I think that.
I used to think that as well. The kind of the market analysis behind it, but I don't know anymore. I mean, I really genuinely believe that the privatization of ABC, NBC, and CBS is kind of is really blurry, or just a formality now at best. Like, especially, and I don't know this, but the USAID, the funding, or the big pharma funding, like if that all of their ads are big pharma, all of their ads are supported by essentially this pipeline, and it just makes you think, if you get into how much of the government, before RFK especially, was also intertwined with all of this.
Oh, wow, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and then you start to think, well, hang on, wait a second. I mean, it is ultimately all about the money, but is it really about advertising, or is some of this stuff just astroturfed in a way to get the propaganda to the people and pay the people that need to be paid? But is it, how much of it is really, like, who's watching a pharmaceutical ad and then being like, oh, yeah, I'm going to ask my doctor about that. I mean, I've never seen a pharmaceutical ad and ask my doctor, but of course I'm younger, so maybe.
Well, and you may not have a chronic disease that some of this stuff speaks to.
You're exactly right. I don't know. I mean, I may be wrong. You may have rose-colored glasses. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle on that, I would imagine.
I believe that the market always dictates things, and so what we saw with Target with their virtue signaling.
Yeah.
With the
June Pride Month.
Yeah, and they were selling tuck underwear and swimsuits for little boys trying to hide their pee-pees, and you're just like, you're freaking sick. You're sick. You're selling this gear. You're sick in the head.
Yeah.
And so they did that until there was a lot of backlash, and the conservatives started voting with their dollars, which they do. And what did Target do? You know what? Instead of where the Pride Month stuff is going to be, we're going to have American gear, American flags, and coolers and T-shirts with American flags on them, right? So you saw this shift. Well, it wasn't because Target just woke up one day and was like, you know what? I think this is a bad idea. No, it's because people started voting with their dollars.
Yeah, there's no doubt that the same thing with Bud Light. There's no doubt that is real, that does happen. For sure. Hey, real quick, before we go anywhere, before we go into our next segment, I do want to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, which is a friend of the show who's actually been on the show. His name is Cody Powers, but it's T-Guard Bail Bonds. And so if you're ever in a pickle, and I hope nobody out there listening to this is.
Hopefully you don't need him, but if you do.
Yeah, but if you do, just keep T-Guard Bail Bonds in mind. And, of course, the phone number there, you see at the top of your screen, is Cody Powers' number, which is 870-378-3937. So we really appreciate T-Guard Bail Bonds.
Cody is a great guy, and he's going to get you out of jail fast, and he's going to be understanding and all of that stuff. But you got to keep in mind, like, hey, stay yourself out of trouble. But if you have an issue, call Cody Powers.
Absolutely, 100%. Hang on one second. Sorry about that little technical difficulty there. So next up we have this. Which is, hang on one second. Oh, James Comey. So James Comey may be getting indicted.
Here we
ladies
go.
And gentlemen.
Right. So this is apparently this is imminent, and what we're led to believe is that the statute of limitation is about to expire, essentially 1 week from today or 1 week from yesterday. Not really sure, but on the 30th, whatever that ends up being, and there were. We saw the firing of the prosecutor in the prosecutor's office. Help me. What district was that?
That's in the Eastern District of Virginia.
Virginia. There you go. Thank you. And so we saw that, and you're just like, oh, well, that's just Trump meddling. But I think it was because what we saw was a slow playing of this. This is our chance to get James Comey for his many, many, many crimes. This is one of many.
One of them. And you look, if that's all you can do, I mean, but I think there's a lot more. This is what MSNBC is reporting. So again, take it with a grain of salt.
Sources familiar tell MSNBC former FBI Director James Comey is expected to be indicted in the coming days. The full extent of the charges being prepared against Comey is unclear. Joining us now, MSNBC Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delanian and MSNBC Senior Investigative Correspondent Carol Lenig. Chris O'Leary, Ashley Parker still with us. Carol, help us understand the reporting.
So, Katie, we have some sources who say that for several weeks now, the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of Virginia, and actually in offices that are potentially much further south than Alexandria, have been eyeing ways to indict Comey, and they are getting very much closer. The statute of limits, rephrase, they are arguing that there is evidence to suggest Comey lied to Congress in his testimony on the Hill in September of 2020. And for viewers out in the audience who may not be legally as nerdy as me and Ken, I'll just say that there's a statute of limitations to charge people.
So the statute of limitations is 5 years, and so that is going to expire, according to reports, in 6 days. So,
well, the statute of limitations meant nothing in New York whenever they indicted Trump.
You're right about that. But this raises an interesting discussion because James Comey should be indicted for treason. James Comey should be indicted for a giant conspiracy, whether it's a RICO conspiracy or whatever. I mean, it's very obvious that he is a part of the intel oligarchy that framed Donald Trump for treason. This was a color revolution that the intel agencies turned against the American people, turned against who we voted for. They not only did that, they spied on President Trump before he won in 2016. There are so many things to indict James Comey for: leaking documents to the media. But they're going to, at least according to the reports, going to go after him for this. They could also go after him for lying to the FISA court. So I'm actually hoping that the indictment, lying to Congress, but I hope there's a bunch of other stuff in there. I'm not going to hold my breath. But, I mean, the maximum sentence, I think, for lying to Congress, Rob, is only like 7 years, and people most of the time get a few months. I'm thinking about Steve Bannon. I'm thinking about Peter Navarro.
What? Honestly, think about it. Think about it from this Lady Justice, the statue there that's holding the scales of justice. What is the most prominent thing on that entire statue?
The blindfold.
The blindfold, right? Because we know that justice is supposed to be blind, and no objectionable person, no person who is reasonable would look at the scenario that took place leading up to, realistically leading up to the first impeachment. And but even before that, during the election, no person would look at that and say, James Comey wasn't putting his hand on the scale, because he was.
Yeah.
He even testified before Congress that no reasonable prosecutor would have indicted Hillary Clinton. And we've had countless prosecutors come out and say, I would have. I absolutely would have. And because when you think about what the leader of the FBI is, the leader of the FBI is a police officer. At the end of the day, that's what the FBI is. They are an investigative arm of the United States government, but they are essentially police officers. They investigate the crime. Prosecutors decide whether charges are filed and whether that goes to trial or whether there's a plea deal, whatever that case may be. The director of the FBI doesn't make that decision, and he sat there in front of Congress and said no reasonable person would have indicted Hillary Clinton. So I just moved it to the side. BS, man. You should have given that to a prosecutor. You should have given that to the attorney general.
Well, who was Loretta Lynch at the time?
It wouldn't have mattered, but at the least point, Paul, at the least of it, he would have said, I did my job.
Yeah.
And he's sitting here today because he didn't do his job.
Yeah.
And the job that he did, he put his hand on the scale.
He's notorious. I mean, first of all, and I've talked about this before, but James Comey got his Boy Scout reputation by going to Congress and testifying in front of Chuck Schumer's committee years ago when Alberto Gonzales was working for George H.W. Bush, and the Attorney General at the time was John Ashcroft. John Ashcroft, they thought, was on his deathbed, that he was deathly ill, but there were provisions of the Patriot Act that were about to expire, and so there was this really dramatic thing. The Deputy Attorney General at that time was James Comey, and so he rushed to the hospital bed of John Ashcroft as Alberto Gonzales, working in the Bush White House, who then also became Attorney General later, was trying to get Ashcroft to sign off on continuing some provisions in the Patriot Act on surveillance that were, expiring.
While the dude is in the hospital?
Yes. And so James Comey was there and apparently found a way to stop it or something, and then he went and testified as Mr. Boy Scout about how important the Fourth Amendment is and how that was really bad and blah, 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 blah. And he did the dirty work of, well, I mean, it's a whole uniparty at that time anyway, but you know what I mean? It was this big, grandiose, blah, blah, blah. And that's kind of how he got his Boy Scout image. But, you know, in hindsight, I now want to know what exactly was going on in that hospital. Like now, because I don't trust Comey at all. James Comey is not a Boy Scout. James Comey is a type 1 narcissist. He and if you go back and you look at that interview with him and George Snuffleupagus, you know, when he's asking him like, "Hey, well, don't you think he should have known that, you know, that it wasn't real, or you know, or that it was paid for by the Clinton campaign? Don't you think that the dossier that he should have known that it was paid for by his opponent's campaign?" And James Comey just says, "Well, no, not really." And you know, they intentionally left Donald Trump in the dark time and time again. Here's a clip of James Comey from, let's see, I don't know if this has a date on it. This is in 2017, so presumably they're going to get him for lying to Congress in 2020.
So this would be 5 months after Trump took office.
But you know, want to talk about lying to Congress? This man's lied. This man has lied. Yeah. You know, he constantly lies. That's all James Comey does is lie.
Yeah.
There should be no fuzz on this whatsoever. The Russians interfered in our election during the 2016 cycle. They did it with purpose. They did it with sophistication. They did it with overwhelming technical efforts. And it was an active measures campaign driven from the top of that government. There is no fuzz on that. It is a high confidence judgment of the entire intelligence community. And the members of this committee have seen the intelligence. It's not a close call. That happened. That's about as unfake as you can possibly get, and is very, very serious, which is why it's so refreshing to see a bipartisan focus on that, because this is about America, not about any particular party.
And he's lying the whole time.
He's lying his whole time.
He's lying the whole time because tomorrow we're going to be talking to Congressman Rick Crawford on the program. He's going to be in seat number 3, and he and Tulsi Gabbard declassified the report that showed that Obama totally manufactured the Russian hoax.
Yep. The 51 intelligence agents, all of that stuff that happened later, all of that was set in motion by the fact that in 2016, leading up to the election, Barack Obama, worried about his legacy, ordered his intelligence community to give a fake intelligence report. Now, this was leading up. I'm sorry, I believe that the actual meeting happened after the election.
Well, that's
was
still
in December.
That would still be 2016.
Correct, but all of this stuff was way before the Russian hoax came out and we saw impeachment number 1. James Comey literally just lied because the proof was that Russia bought $100,000 worth of Facebook ads. And somebody would say, well, that's a lot of Facebook ads, $100,000. That is peanuts compared to what our political what Kamala Harris just spend? $1.5 billion?
Yeah.
With a B?
Yeah.
You know? And Russia spent $100,000. They interfere in every election. That has been proven. Russia tries to sow discord. They want to, cause chaos. All of that stuff. But did it affect the outcome of the election? No reasonable person believes that. But James Comey's explanation there, Paul, was it was sophisticated, it was detailed, it was this, it was that, it was a bunch of Facebook ads.
Yeah.
That's what they did. I'm not trying to minimize, Russia
minimize
wanting
away
to do all that stuff, but that's BS, man.
No, you can minimize
you just lied.
You can minimize it all you want, man, because it's absolutely no big deal, and it's not just Russia that does it. All countries do stuff like this, right? Foreign countries do this all the time. We do it to them.
There's no way in the world Russia did anything worse than what Hillary Clinton did in 2016.
But the narrative was that Russia put Trump in the White House, that Russia swayed the election. And I'll tell you something else. So not only did Comey participate in that narrative, which was a total lie, which helped to further alienate Trump from getting the rest of the country to see that, he's not the person that they said he was, but we also framed a nuclear power with installing our own president.
Yeah.
Like, and nobody, and I know this is crazy because I know things are heating up, right now between the United States and NATO and Ukraine and Russia and everything, but no one ever talks about that. That, like, we're trying to get peace between Russia and Ukraine. And we're trying to get Russia to lay down their arms. But, like, Vladimir Putin, he knows what happened. These intel oligarchs not only framed Trump for treason, they framed his country as being, a puppet master.
Yeah.
And then we see in the intel report that they actually had dirt on Hillary Clinton, who appears to be possessed by a demon.
Right.
If you go read it, she sounds like she was a complete basket case. And they were going to use that and exploit her.
It frustrates me so much because Bill Maher is obviously a Democrat. He's a liberal. And he's an old school liberal. Like, he thinks this trans ideology crap is just ridiculous. But if you ever listen to Bill Maher, even going back to the whole Russian collusion thing, and he was asked, and I forget who the guest was, and they asked Bill Maher, do you honestly think that Donald Trump is a Russian asset? And Bill Maher's answer, how could you not think that?
Yeah.
And you're just like, that sort of mentality led to, as Trey Gowdy said when he was a member of the House, and I believe he was on the Intel committee at that point, and they're questioning, what's his face that took over after Comey? What's his name? The FBI director that took over.
Rod Rosenstein, right?
No. It was another guy. Regardless, he just said, you need to get this finished up because you're tearing the country apart. And Trey Gowdy was 100% right about that. That Mueller report, that everything that was happening with that Russian collusion stuff was tearing the country apart. And James Comey was the lighter under the fire.
Yeah, he was.
When the gasoline had been poured, James Comey was the one that lit the fire.
Yeah, and that's a whole other thing. Like, I think the Mueller, everybody that was working for Robert Mueller needs to be investigated as well, because when Mueller finally came to give the testimony, and of course the report did not prove Russia collusion, right? The whole Mueller investigation was the cover up from the spying on Trump and everything that led up to it, and the frame job. I really believe that. But like, Mueller was kind of like foreshadowing Joe Biden. I mean, Mueller in that hearing was not coherent. He was frail. And now, lo and behold, he's been given a subpoena a couple of weeks ago from the House, and they've now withdrawn the subpoena because he's in it, for lack of a better term, an old folks' home and has dementia, and is literally incapable. And I believe that based on how they pulled the guy out of retirement in order to become the special counsel to begin with.
Yeah.
And then he's clearly, not able to answer these questions. I thought at the time, this is either an act or this guy really isn't there, and they're just using him as a puppet head while they were, trying to cover up everything and trying to, figure out a way to make all the charges stick. So that whole process was corrupt as well. And it had an entire cloud over Trump's first presidency.
Mm-hmm. It created this cloud of, Trump's a Russian asset, and the Democrats would always be like, they would post memes of Robert Mueller, and it's like, he's coming, he's right after you. And so what are they posting now? Trump with pictures of Jeffrey Epstein. He's like, well, release those files. I'm like, Democrats, what do you have? What do you have? If it's not some sort of manufactured thing from your own base over here, like, literally tell me what policy you disagree with by Trump.
Yeah.
Because you can't name them, because you don't follow it at a depth that would allow for you to do that. You follow it at a surface level, and you believe what MSNBC tells you.
I think you can also make the case that, like, all of these deep state folks that were basically trying to sabotage Trump every step of the way in Trump 1.0, with Comey and Russia, I mean, it just bled right into COVID. It bled right into, let's shut the country down. Let's make 2020 one of the most psychologically disturbing events of entire generations, and demoralize the population and get it really confusing. And so because we can't have Trump winning in 2020, and then of course the mail-in ballots and the steal and everything else.
The 2,000 mules.
I mean, the whole thing. We need so much accountability. So I'm actually frustrated. Like, I want James Comey I want them to get him however they have to get him, because he's done so many other illegal things. Like, I'm fine if you've got to get, just like they got Al Capone on tax evasion, right? Okay, I get it. But what about everybody else? We're now 9, almost 10 months into the administration, and we're just now even hearing whispers from MSNBC that Comey's going to be indicted. We need a lot more people.
There needs to be a lot more perp walks. I agree with you in that, and that just speaks to what Trump was trying to send the message to Pam Bondi. I mean, I think maybe I think maybe he looked at it and says, "All right, I'm going to put some public pressure."
Look at that. Let's look at that. We have that right here. As a matter of fact, I'm glad you brought that up. So somebody named Svetlana Lakova. She says, puts this into perspective. President Trump found out that the 5-year statute of limitations on Comey's prosecution for lying to Congress was running out within days, and that the prosecutor was compromised and slow-walking the indictment. So President Trump had to interfere and change the prosecutor, hopefully just in time. Watch this. Listen to this. Let's read these, shall we? Pam, I have reviewed over 30 statements and posts saying that essentially same old story as last time. All talk, no action. Nothing is being done. What about Comey, Adam Shifty Schiff, Letitia? They're all guilty as hell, but nothing is going to be done. So that's what he keeps hearing. Then we almost put in a Democrat-supported U.S. attorney in Virginia with a really bad Republican past, a woke rhino who was never going to do his job. That's why 2 of the worst Dem senators pushed him so hard. He even lied to the media and said he quit and that he had no case. No, I fired him, and there is a great case, and many lawyers and legal pundits say so. Lindsay Halligan is a really good lawyer and likes you a lot. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. They impeached me twice, indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now. President Donald J. Trump. Now, yesterday, Pam Bondi's chief of staff resigned, said he's going to resign. So I don't know if that's also related to this as well.
I had not heard that.
Yeah, I covered it earlier, but I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Then the next one. Pam Bondi is doing a great job as Attorney General of the United States. So this was kind of the follow-up.
Yeah, I think he's like trying to, maybe put it back into the box.
Trying to put it,
bit.
Yeah. Trying to. Or you just kind of wonder, did Susie Wiles rush into the Oval Office?
Hey.
Why did you just post that?
Yeah.
Pam is doing a great job as Attorney General, he says. She's very careful, very smart, loves our country, but needs a tough prosecutor in the Eastern District of Virginia, like my recommendation, Lindsay Halligan, to get things done. What we don't need is a Democrat-endorsed Republican. I will be nominated Lindsay Halligan to be the United States Attorney in this very important part of our great country. She will be fair, smart, and will provide desperately needed justice for all. Yeah. And now we have, and so all of that into context, they're saying James Comey may be indicted within the next 6 days. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I don't know, as long as I guess technically as long as the indictment is filed prior to September 30th, then then the statute of limitation is good. Now, it's interesting. Can you file an indictment for this and then add to it after those statute of limitations have passed? Or does it all have to be in there?
That's a great question. I'm not an attorney.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I would say for the charge, for the specific charge of lying to Congress, that has to be, and I think you could add charges later, most definitely, that don't fall into that. If you get him for lying to Congress and then they have because allegedly they're investigating. Basically, all of this is one giant conspiracy. I mean, from everything Comey did to the raid at Mar-a-Lago to Jack Smith to Merrick Garland to all of it. Rod Rosenstein. I'm sorry, not Rod Rosenstein. Although who knows? I'm talking about James Clapper. I'm talking about Lisa Page, Peter Strzok. The text messages, all of that, to investigate it. Because there's still a lot of people that think that they raided Mar-a-Lago because they were after the report that Rick Crawford and Tulsi Gabbard released.
Right. And I don't know how much Rick Crawford is. So again, if you're just tuning in, Rick Crawford, our member of the House here from Northeast Arkansas, and I forget what district it's called.
District 1.
Okay, so number 1, hey. And so he is going to be joining us tomorrow live, and we will present that to you from 4 to 5 p.m. Central. If you are watching us on Hometown TV there, if you like what you see, let your cable provider know and hopefully continue to tune in with us. And we run Monday through Thursday, probably going to eventually add a Friday show from 4 p.m. till 5 p.m. But anyway, we're going to have Rick Crawford in there. We've got a lot of questions that we want to ask him, how much he can actually answer or not, obviously.
Because he's a part of the Gang of 8. He gets the same intel briefing every morning that Donald Trump does.
Right, but it is extremely important that you understand how important Rick Crawford is right now. Because of that Gang of Eight, he is not just one of the 400 and something members. This dude is one of the Gang of Eight. He receives the same intel briefing as the president on a daily basis. He is one of the most important people, realistically, in the world, and he represents us here in Arkansas. On the Senate side, really great that we also have Tom Cotton, who is the chair of the Intel Committee on the Senate side. So Arkansas is all up in this, right? In this Intel Committee.
It's actually fascinating.
It's extremely fascinating, and honestly probably not going to happen again, especially for a small state like this. And so I think if you were one of the people in California, it wouldn't necessarily be that big of a deal. But is a person like Adam Schiff the next to get a perp walk? And he is a sitting United States senator now.
Boy, it would be fantastic.
Can you imagine? Like, I don't know that you could pull me down from my cloud of glee if I got to see Adam Schiff in handcuffs.
Oh, man, I know. And here's the reason why it's important. Not holding people like James Comey, Adam Schiff, and all of these criminals accountable only emboldens people like this ICE shooter today.
Sure.
Only emboldens people like the assassin who killed Charlie Kirk. Like, their own people aren't held accountable. Yeah. So it is, it's just emboldening violence and lawlessness all across the country. All right, moving on now to Tylenol. Here's our follow-up segment. Leftist women, we were talking about yesterday, Rob, leftist women are downing Tylenol, pregnant women, because RFK said, hey, there's a link between Tylenol and autism, don't do it. And so people have now gone and they found this old tweet from 2017 where Tylenol actually says, we actually don't recommend using any of our products while pregnant. Thank you for taking the time to voice your concerns. And so people are now throwing this in front of these liberal pregnant women's faces who are making videos taking Tylenol.
Yeah.
And they're saying, once again, Trump will make people against anything.
But my doctor said,
yeah.
My doctor said, and truthfully, you should listen to a doctor, but it goes back to exactly what we were talking about yesterday, and that doctors are only as good as the information that they are given.
That's exactly right.
And if they have, it's one of those things where you just don't question it. You don't question, hey, pregnant lady, you cannot take ibuprofen, but you can take Tylenol. You can take acetaminophen, right? You can take, everybody keeps calling it Tylenol, but the generic name is acetaminophen. And it's like, okay, you can take this, but you can't take that. But we just don't ever question it. Like, well, why? Why can't I take ibuprofen? Or why can I only take acetaminophen? What is the difference? What's the diff? What's the diff? And I don't know what the answer to that is, but I can tell you that just mass acceptance of that is never a good thing.
Oh, yeah.
You just happen to believe. And so we keep talking about it's not, vaccines don't cause autism. Tylenol doesn't cause autism. And then so you just want to lean in and say, then what does? Because if you don't know, can you sit here and say that this doesn't? Well, that's not what my doctor says. Your doctor went to medical school. Your doctor is only as good as the information that he or she has, folks. Okay, I am not trying to say that I'm smarter than a doctor. My God in heaven, I am nowhere close to as intelligent as a doctor is in certain things.
You probably are.
Okay,
well, this is a misconception, but yes, to your point, I get it. We didn't
well,
go to med
listen,
school,
listen. Ask me about a real estate contract, which I can write in my sleep, and a doctor would look at it and it would look like Greek. I get it.
Think about somebody in your class. This is their own business. Think about somebody like you graduated with.
Yeah.
And think about their intelligence level. I can think of people I know that I graduated with that are doctors, and yes, they're smart, but they're not any smarter than I was.
Well, sometimes, let's be honest, sometimes doctors are just good studiers.
Yeah, that's true.
Like people that are really good.
They certainly can take standardized tests better than me. Let me tell you. So maybe I am a dum dum.
Yeah. But at the same time, I'll never forget when I worked at the hospital. I don't know if we got out of time for this, but I worked at the hospital. I used to transport patients. This was while I was going to college. I used to transport patients back and to and from a test. And I'd be like, hey, I'll take you for this test, and I'll bring you back in this wheelchair and all this stuff. Well, anyway, this person was coding while I was in there to get them, and they're laying in. It was a tragedy. And the cardiologist walked in there, and his name was Suresh. I won't say his last name, but his name was Suresh, and he walked in there, and we just said, he's coding, sir, you know. And I'm just a freaking I'm a college student. Like, what the heck do I know? And and this person's coding. Suresh just reaches over there and turns up his oxygen. And that was it. That was all he did, because he is a cardiologist. He is reading test results. He is, some of them who are cardiologists, who are surgeons, or doing open heart surgery or something like that. They're not if I'm crashing, give me a triage nurse. Don't give me a cardiologist. Give me a triage nurse. Somebody who has crawled on top of someone to save their life. That's who I want trying to save my life. Give me a triage nurse. But I was like, wait a minute. This cardiologist went to high school, of course, and then he went to college. Then he went to medical school. Then he, whatever, and he got a specialty in cardiology and has done a residency. Mm-hmm. This person has lived and breathed medicine, and his solution to someone coding was turn the oxygen up.
And he was fine. The patient was fine.
I can't remember. This has been so long ago. I can't remember if that patient made it or not.
Okay.
But I can just tell you that the nurses. I'm going to tell you this: the nurses came in and pushed him to the side.
Okay.
The nurses came in and saved that dude's life if he got saved. Like, he was the nurses. Like, give me a nurse, man.
The doctor turned the oxygen off, and turned the oxygen up, and then turned and said, "Quick, somebody get the pharmaceutical rep in here."
Like the pharmaceutical rep's going to do anything. Like, what was it? Joy Behar a few years ago just really stepped in it when she said, that person's a nurse. Why are they wearing a stethoscope? And did she open the firestorm? And rightfully so, because I was like, tell me you've never worked in a hospital or been in a hospital and paid attention. Because the nurses are the ones doing the work.
When you get the medical degree and you become an actual doctor, a golden stethoscope comes down from the sky, and that's yours for life.
Makes you the be-all, know-all.
Nurses aren't allowed to touch a stethoscope.
Oh, my gosh. Again, I'm going to say this as clearly as I can. If I am coding, give me a nurse, especially a triage nurse. Give me that.
There you go.
If I'm coding.
But on this story, I mean, these are two different headlines. 2013, 2025. Reuters, too much Tylenol in pregnancy could affect development. RFK basically says the same thing years later. And
12 years later. And
Trump links autism to Tylenol and vaccines, claims not backed by science.
Yes.
These people are evil. They are evil liars.
They are. And even our local news, did you see this?
No.
Did you see our local news?
What did they do?
They had posted an article talking about the Trump's Tylenol stuff and rehashing debunked theories that vaccines cause autism. And I'm like...
He actually didn't even mention that. I mean, he mentioned vaccines.
He mentioned he mentioned the vaccine schedule.
Yeah, the vaccine schedule.
That is a much different thing than saying, "Hey, because you got the measles, the measles vaccine that caused your autism." No, he's saying, why are we giving the Hep B, which is sexually transmitted? Why are we giving that to an infant?
Yeah.
Why are we giving that? Why is that not given before that person enters into puberty?
I'm right there. I know you're exactly right, and I think we're actually getting closer to potentially. I mean, this was just the first step, and if the media hated this announcement, get ready for the others, because I don't think they're going to stop. I really don't. It's
not going to stop.
And then last, we only have like a few seconds, but Donald Trump posting this. President Trump has just unveiled the Presidential Wall of Fame at the White House, and you see them all, but Joe Biden's portrait is just an auto pen. So calling it the troll of trolls, President Trump, ladies and gentlemen.
Is that not? But here's the deal: if you're an objective person, is that not the truth?
Oh yeah,
it's 100% the truth.
It is.
Joe Biden, who was running the country, whoever was controlling that auto pen,
100%.
Like Mike Johnson tells the story, and I know we're out of time, but Mike Johnson tells the story about how he had a meeting with President Biden, and he said, "Sir, why did you sign this?" He's like, "No. What I signed," he's like, "It was this or that." He's like, "No, sir. That's not what you signed. What you signed killed it. And he's like, well, I'll have to have my people get back to you. And in Joe Biden's defense, he didn't sign it. The auto pen did. The people behind the scenes running the show.
All right, folks, I want to remind you that if you want to support us directly, you can go to paultalkshow.substack.com. That's paultalkshow.substack.com. And if you do become a paid subscriber, monthly or yearly, I'll give you a copy of my game, Left Wing Will and the Red Pill. You see right there, the card game that laughs at the left's expense. That's all the time we have. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow where we talk to Congressman Rick Crawford. Rob Spencer, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Folks, God bless, and we'll see you tomorrow.